1 month after my wife's funeral, I stopped by my son's house before my flight. I thought I was only leaving behind an empty home and painful memories. Then my phone rang. My neighbor whispered, "I saw someone behind your house, digging for something under the old tree. Come back right away." I rushed home, and what I saw in my backyard froze me in place. Before we go further, I'm so grateful you're here with me today. Drop a comment and tell me, where are you watching from? Your city, your state, your country, I want to know. Here on Revenge. Dad, every person in that comment section matters to me. This story contains fictional elements for entertainment and educational purposes. Any resemblance to names or places is coincidental, but the message is one worth carrying. My name is Thomas Miller. I am 66 years old, and for 38 years I built things for a living: bridges, commercial buildings, highway overpasses across the state of California. I was good at reading structural plans. I was good at spotting weaknesses before they became failures. I was not good at reading the people closest to me. That morning, I was sitting at my son's kitchen island in Pasadena, holding a mug of coffee I had barely touched. The coffee had gone cold. I hadn't noticed. My mind had been doing that a lot lately, drifting somewhere just out of reach, like a radio signal that keeps cutting out no matter how many times you adjust the dial. Margaret had been gone for exactly 1 month. 1 month since the hospital. 1 month since the funeral at St. Andrew's Church on Colorado Boulevard, where the pews were full and the flowers were white. And I stood at the front and shook hands with people whose names I could not remember 10 minutes later. 1 month since I came home to a house that still smelled like her lavender soap, and sat down on the edge of our bed and did not move for a very long time. "Dad," my son Michael set a fresh mug in front of me and slid the cold one away. "You didn't drink that." "I know," I said. "Thank you." Michael was 41 years old and looked more like me every year. Same jaw, same way of standing with his shoulders squared. He worked in real estate over in Beverly Hills, handled properties worth more money than most people see in a lifetime. He had his mother's eyes, which made it harder to look at him directly some mornings. "You really should eat something before the airport." Emily came around the corner from the hallway, already dressed for work, her dark hair pulled back neatly. She set a plate of toast on the counter in front of me. "I made it with the sourdough you like." Emily was Michael's wife, 38 years old, sharp and organized in the way that people who work in law offices tend to be. She had always been attentive with me, remembering which bread I preferred, keeping decaf in the cabinet for when I stayed over, asking about my blood pressure medication at just the right moments. "Thank you, sweetheart," I said. She smiled and touched my arm briefly. "We just want to make sure you're okay before you head out." Michael sat down across from me. "Oregon is going to be good for you, Dad. Fresh air, different scenery. You've been cooped up in that house for a month." "I know," I said again. And I did know. That was exactly why I had called my old friend Dale Patterson up in Bendale, and I had worked together on a highway project in Oregon back in the 80s. And we had stayed close in the way that men who work long jobs together sometimes do. Told him I needed somewhere to go for a few months. Somewhere that wasn't full of Margaret's reading glasses and her cardigan on the back of the chair, and the half-finished crossword puzzle she had left on the nightstand, the week before she went into the hospital for the last time. I picked up the toast. I ate it because Emily had made it, and because my body needed fuel, even when my chest felt like someone had filled it with wet concrete. "We'll keep an eye on the house while you're gone," Michael said, wrapping both hands around his own mug. "Make sure everything's in order." "I appreciate that. And if there's anything you need us to look into, finances, paperwork, anything like that," he paused. "Just say the word. You shouldn't have to deal with all of that alone." I looked at my son over the rim of my mug. "I've been managing my own paperwork for 40 years, Michael." He laughed easy and relaxed. "I know you have. I just meant we're here." Emily glanced at him quickly, then back at me and smiled again. "That's all he means. We're here." I told them I knew. I told them I was grateful. And I meant both of those things because I had no reason yet not to mean them. I hugged Michael at the door. He held on a second longer than usual, and I felt his hand press firmly against my back. I patted his shoulder the way I had done since he was a boy. Emily hugged me too and told me to text when I landed. I drove west on Colorado Boulevard toward the freeway, the morning sun cutting low and bright across the windshield. The neighborhood slid past the old bungalows, the jacaranda trees dropping purple petals on the sidewalk. The coffee shop Margaret and I had gone to every Saturday morning for 11 years. I kept my eyes on the road. I had almost reached the on-ramp when my phone rang. I did not recognize the number at first. Then I saw the name on the screen. Richard Hayes. Richard was 71 years old and had lived in the house to the left of mine for 28 years. He was a retired Los Angeles police officer, a big quiet man who mowed his lawn on Saturday mornings and always waved when he saw you coming. He and I had shared a fence line and a slow, comfortable friendship for nearly 3 decades. He did not call me often. When he did, it was not for small talk. I answered before the second ring. Richard. Thomas. His voice was tight in a way that made my hand grip the wheel harder. Where are you right now? On my way to the airport. What's wrong? Turn around. There was no hesitation in it. Get back to your house right now. My stomach dropped. What happened? Did something... There's a woman in your backyard, Richard said. She's been out there for 20 minutes. She's digging. I didn't say anything. My foot had already lifted off the gas. Digging, I repeated. Under that big oak tree your wife loved. Thomas, she's got a shovel, and she is digging in your yard. I called out to her and she didn't answer. I almost called the police, but I wanted to reach you first. I was already turning the car around, tires dragging against the curb, as I pulled a U-turn on a side street near the on-ramp. My heart had moved up somewhere into my throat, beating hard and uneven, the kind of beat that reminds you that you are 66 years old, and your body does not handle surprises the way it used to. I'm coming, I said. Don't do anything. I'm coming right now. I drove back faster than I should have. The neighborhood looked exactly the same as it had 10 minutes ago, the jacarandas, the bungalows, the coffee shop. But everything felt different. My hands were damp against the steering wheel. My breathing was shallow and quick. I pulled into my driveway, got out of the car, and walked around the side of the house to the backyard gate. The gate was unlocked. I pushed it open slowly. The morning light fell long and golden across the yard. The roses Margaret had planted along the fence were still blooming pink and stubborn. The patio table was where we had always kept it, 2 chairs facing the garden. And there, under the old oak tree at the far end of the yard, the one Margaret had planted herself from a sapling 30 years ago, the one she called her thinking tree. A woman was crouched low to the ground, driving a shovel into the earth with both hands. My chest tightened so hard I had to stop walking. I could not see her face. She was turned away from me, her dark hair tied back her shoulders, working steadily. She had dug a hole nearly 2 feet deep. The earth was piled up beside her in dark, uneven mounds. I took 3 steps forward, then 4. My throat had gone completely dry. She must have heard my footsteps on the grass because she stopped. Her shoulders went rigid. She turned around slowly. My blood ran cold, because the woman digging under my wife's favorite tree, the woman with dirt on her hands and a shovel at her feet and a look on her face like someone who had just been caught doing something they could never fully explain, was my daughter. Lily, I said. My voice came out strange thin, like I was hearing it from the other end of a long hallway. She stood up. The shovel fell sideways against the tree roots with a dull clank. Her hands were shaking. I could see it from where I stood, and her eyes were red at the edges in the way that told me she had been crying before I arrived, maybe for a while. Dad, she said. Her voice broke completely on that one word. Lily. I took another step forward and my legs felt unsteady beneath me like the ground itself had shifted. What are you doing? She pressed one trembling hand over her mouth and pointed down at the hole. I looked. Halfway out of the dark earth caked in soil and roots was a metal box, small, rectangular, old, the kind of box that had once held documents or keepsakes. The lid was half exposed, and even from where I stood, I could see the dirt-smudged surface and the strip of tape on top. And written on that tape in handwriting, I would have recognized anywhere in the world, in the careful looping cursive of the woman who had written me on birthday cards for 42 years, was one word: Thomas. My knees wanted to give out. I locked them and stayed standing because I did not know what else to do. The garden was bright around me, the roses still blooming, the oak leaves catching the morning light, the way they always had on clear September days. Everything looked the same. Nothing was the same. Dad, Lily said, and her voice was still shaking, still breaking at the edges. I can explain, but we need to go inside first. Lily carried the box inside. I could not bring myself to touch it yet. I followed her through the back door into the kitchen, and I stood near the counter while she set it carefully on the table where Margaret and I had eaten breakfast together for 42 years, where we had helped the kids with homework, where we had sat on the night Margaret told me the cancer had spread, and there was nothing more the doctors could do. The table had seen a lot. I was not sure it had seen anything like this. Lily pulled out a chair and sat down. She pressed both palms flat against the tabletop, fingers spread the way she used to do as a child, when she was trying very hard to keep herself together. Her hands were still shaking. There was dirt caught under her fingernails and a dark smear across the back of her left wrist. "Sit down, Dad," she said. "I'm fine standing. Please." Her voice cracked on the word. "Please sit down." I sat. For a moment, neither of us spoke, not from silence, but because Lily was pressing her lips together, hard, pulling in a slow breath through her nose, fighting to get the words in the right order before they came out. I could see the effort of it in her jaw and the way her shoulders rose and fell. "Mom told me about the box," she finally said. 3 weeks before she passed. I stared at her. 3 weeks. I know. Lily's eyes filled immediately and she blinked hard against it, pressing 2 fingers to the bridge of her nose. "I know how that sounds, Dad. I wanted to tell you so many times. I almost called you twice last week, but Mom was very specific about it. She said she made me promise that I would only go looking for it if something started happening with the house, with the property." "What did she say exactly?" Lily lowered her hand. Her chin was trembling. She took my hand and she looked right at me the way she used to look at us when she needed us to really hear her. And she said, "Lily, if anything ever starts happening with your father's house, if anyone starts pressuring him or asking him to sign things, or if the property comes up in ways that feel wrong, go to the backyard, dig under the oak, and do not let your brother find it first." The last sentence landed like something physical. I felt it in the center of my chest, a pressure that spread outward and upward until the back of my throat ached with it. "She said that," I said. "Those words. Those exact words." A tear broke loose from Lily's left eye and rolled down the side of her face. She did not wipe it away. I didn't fully understand what she meant at the time. I thought it might be the medication talking or the exhaustion. She was so tired those last weeks, Dad. But she wasn't confused. She was the clearest I had ever seen her. I looked at the box on the table. It was smaller than I remembered it, looking in the ground, maybe 10 inches long, 7 inches wide, the kind of flat metal container that might have once held important documents or old photographs. The surface was scratched and dull, marked by years of being pressed against the earth. The strip of tape across the top had gone brown at the edges, but the handwriting on it was clear and unmistakable. Thomas, Margaret's handwriting, the particular way she always formed the capital T with a long, slightly curved crossbar. I had seen that handwriting on grocery lists and birthday cards and the notes she used to slip into my work bag when I had an early job site visit. She had been writing me small notes since we were 24 years old. My eyes burned. I pressed my fist against my mouth for a moment and stared at the ceiling until the feeling passed enough to breathe through. "Okay," I said when I could speak again. "Okay." Lily reached across the table and covered my hand with hers. Her fingers were cold from the morning air outside, and damp, and she squeezed hard, not gently the way people squeeze your hand. At funerals, the polite and careful squeeze that means I am sorry for your loss. She squeezed the way you hold on to someone when you are both afraid of the same thing, and neither of you knows yet what it is. I turned my hand over and held hers back. Then I reached for the box. The latch was stiff. I worked it with my thumbnail until it gave, and I opened the lid slowly, the way you open something, when part of you already knows that whatever is inside is going to change the shape of things. Inside there were 3 items. The first was a letter 2 pages folded in thirds, written on the pale blue stationery Margaret had kept in the drawer of her bedside table for as long as I could remember. I could see her handwriting through the fold. The second was a small notebook, the kind with a dark green cover and a thin elastic band holding it shut. A diary. Margaret had kept journals on and off throughout our marriage, though I had not known she was keeping one recently. The third was a key, small brass colored, attached to a plain white tag with a string. On the tag, written in Margaret's hand, were 6 words: First Community Bank, Safe Deposit, Box 41. I picked up the key and held it in my palm. It was lighter than I expected, ordinary looking, the kind of key that could belong to anything. Lily leaned forward and read the tag. Her breath caught audibly. "She had a safe deposit box," Lily said, "at First Community Bank." She looked at me. "Did you know about that?" "No," I said. I did not. First Community Bank was 4 blocks from our house on Lake Avenue. Margaret and I had banked there for over 20 years. I had our joint checking account there, our savings, the money market account we had opened when I retired. I knew every teller by name. I had not known my wife had a box there that I had never seen the inside of. Lily sat back in her chair and pressed both hands over her face. A sound came out of her, not quite a sob, but something close to it, something thin and exhausted like air releasing from a place that had been under pressure for a very long time. Her shoulders shook once, twice. She pulled her hands down and looked at me with wet eyes and a jaw set hard against whatever she was feeling. "Dad," she said, "I think we need to read the letter first." I looked at the folded pages in my hand, the pale blue paper, the careful handwriting visible at the edges of the fold. I had held Margaret's hand through 42 years of mornings at this table. I had been with her in the hospital room the night the doctors explained what stage 4 pancreatic cancer meant in plain terms. I had sat beside her through every treatment, every appointment, every quiet evening, when she was too tired to do anything but rest her head on my shoulder and let me hold her. I thought I had been there for all of it. I was beginning to understand that I had not. I unfolded the letter. My hands were steadier than I expected them to be. Margaret had always said I was at my calmest, exactly when things were at their most serious, that I had a stillness that came over me in a crisis the same way a building settles into its foundation under pressure rather than cracking apart. I did not feel calm, but my hands were steady. I read the first line. "Thomas, if you are reading this, I am no longer here to protect you." My hands stopped being steady. I set the letter down on the table very carefully and pressed both palms flat against the surface. The kitchen was bright around me. The morning light came through the window above the sink the same way it always had. Outside, the oak tree stood in the yard, Margaret's thinking tree, the one she had loved best. She had watered it every week for the first 3 years, until it could take care of itself. She had buried something underneath it to take care of me after she was gone. My throat closed entirely. I bent forward over the table, and the grief that came up was the kind that makes no sound, just a shaking in the chest and the shoulders, a pressure behind the eyes so complete that the room blurs at the edges. Lily was out of her chair immediately, her arms around my shoulders, her face pressed against the side of my head. "I've got you," she said fiercely into my hair. "Dad, I've got you. I'm right here." I held onto her forearm with both hands and let it move through me. The loss of Margaret, the 42 years, the pale blue stationery, the key on its white tag, the word Thomas in her handwriting, and somewhere underneath all of it, a fear I could not yet name a fear that had begun forming in the back of my mind, the moment Lily said, "Do not let your brother find it first." After a long moment, I straightened. I wiped my face with the back of my hand. I picked the letter back up. "Okay," I said again. My voice was rough and low. "Let's hear what she had to say." Margaret had beautiful handwriting. I know that is a strange thing to think about when you are sitting at your kitchen table holding a letter your dead wife left buried in the backyard. But that was the first thing that hit me when I smoothed the pages open. Not the words, not yet, but the handwriting itself. The careful loops, the even spacing the way. She always pressed slightly harder on the downstrokes, so they came out a shade darker than the rest. 42 years of grocery lists and birthday cards and little notes tucked into my work bag, and her handwriting had never changed. It looked exactly the same as it had the day she wrote me a letter from her mother's house in Sacramento, the summer we were 26 when I was working a job site in San Diego, and we were too broke to call long distance more than once a week. I had kept that letter. It was in a shoebox in the closet upstairs. I had not known she would be writing me another one at the end. I read slowly. Lily sat across from me, both hands wrapped around a mug of tea she had made while I was gathering myself. She had moved quietly through the kitchen without me asking, filling the kettle, finding the chamomile Margaret kept in the cabinet above the stove. Small acts of care, the kind Margaret had raised her to do. I noticed that. I noticed it and felt the ache of it all the way down. The letter began the way the first line had promised, direct, clear, no preamble. "Thomas, if you are reading this, I am no longer here to protect you. I need you to know that everything I am about to tell you, I am telling you because I love you. Not because I want you to be angry, not because I want our family to fall apart, but because you deserve the truth and because I could not leave without making sure you had it." I had to stop after that paragraph. I set the pages down on the table, pressed both hands over my eyes, and breathed through my nose for a count of 10. the way the grief counselor at Huntington Hospital had suggested during those weeks when Margaret was first diagnosed. It had not worked particularly well then. It did not work particularly well now, but it gave me something to do with my body while the rest of me caught up. "Take your time," Lily said, her voice low and steady. She reached across and slid the mug of tea toward me. "There's no rush." I picked the mug up, took a sip I did not taste, and picked the letter back up. Margaret wrote about the early days of our marriage first. She wrote about the house, how we had bought the lot in 1987 with money we had saved for 4 years, how the yard had been nothing but hard-packed dirt and 3 scraggly eucalyptus trees when we first walked it. She wrote about the morning we poured the foundation for the back patio ourselves, just the 2 of us on a Saturday in October, and how I had gotten concrete on her shoes, and she had laughed so hard she had to sit down on the ground. I remembered that morning. I could feel the October sun on the back of my neck right now, in this kitchen 40 years later. She wrote, "Thomas, I want you to remember that we built this place together, every room of it, every inch of that yard. It belongs to both of us, and it belongs to the life we made here, and I need you to remember that when you read what comes next." I read that sentence 3 times. Then Margaret wrote about Michael. She did not write about him with anger. That was the thing that struck me first. There was no heat in the words, no bitterness the way there might have been, if this had been written in a moment of hurt feelings or a bad day. The tone was the same one she had used when she was explaining something important to her students, or to our children when they were small and had done something she needed them to understand was wrong. Patient, measured, sad in a way that went much deeper than anger. She wrote that she had first begun to notice something was different with Michael about 6 months before she passed. She had thought at first that it was grief, anticipatory grief, the counselors called it, the way families sometimes begin to pull apart or draw together when they know loss is coming. She had given him the benefit of the doubt. She had told herself he was scared, that he was coping the only way he knew how. But then the questions started. She wrote he would ask about the house, about the property values in the neighborhood, about whether we had updated the deed recently and where the paperwork was kept. At first I thought he was being practical. You know how Michael has always been practical, Thomas. It was one of the things you always admired in him. But there is a difference between practical and calculating. And I began to understand slowly that what I was hearing from our son was not concern. It was assessment. My jaw tightened. I kept reading. Margaret wrote that one afternoon in early spring she had been resting in the bedroom when she heard Michael on his phone in the hallway outside. He had not known she was awake. She heard him say 2 things clearly before he moved away down the hall. The first was the phrase Pasadena Metro Expansion. The second was both parcels. She wrote, I did not know what that meant at the time, but I wrote it down. I wrote everything down from that point forward, Thomas. Every conversation, every question, everything that felt wrong. I kept a diary. It is in the box with this letter. I need you to read it. I lowered the letter to the table and looked at the small green notebook sitting beside the box. Margaret had kept a diary for months while she was sick, while she was exhausted, while she was fighting to stay present for every remaining day. She had been quietly documenting what she feared was happening to our family. She had done it carefully and methodically, the way she had done everything in her life, the way she had kept her classroom organized for 31 years, the way she had managed our household finances, the way she had shown up for every single one of Lily's nursing school exams with a thermos of coffee and a note that said, I believe in you, tucked under the windshield wiper of Lily's car. She had used her last months to protect me. The realization moved through me like something breaking open, not violent, but irresistible, the way a dam gives way. Not all at once, but in a slow, unstoppable widening. My vision blurred. I pressed the heel of my hand against my sternum hard because the pressure in my chest had become something I needed to push back against. Dad. Lily's voice was tight with worry. She was half out of her chair. Dad, do you need to stop? No, I said. My voice came out rougher than I intended. I cleared my throat. No, keep going. I need to keep going. I turned to the second page. Margaret had written, Thomas, I tried to tell you. I want you to know that. One evening in March, when Michael had been asking again about the deed to the back parcel, I sat down with you after dinner and I said I was worried about him. Do you remember what you said? You said, Margaret, that's just Michael being practical. He's always been that way. Don't read too much into it. My stomach dropped. I remembered that evening. I remembered it with a clarity that was almost physical. The 2 of us at this table, the dishes still in the drying rack, the evening news on low in the other room. I remembered Margaret's face, the way she had looked at me with something she was trying to decide whether to push further. And I remembered waving my hand and saying exactly those words because Michael was my son, and my son was a good man, and I had not been willing to consider anything else. Margaret wrote, "I understood then that you weren't ready to hear it, and I knew that pushing harder would only cause you pain without changing anything, because without proof, it would only be my word against our son's, and I knew which one you would choose. So I decided to get the proof first. I decided to make sure that when you finally did have to see it, you would have everything you needed to understand it completely." I put the letter down on the table. Lily was watching me with her hands pressed flat against the tabletop again, her knuckles pale, her eyes searching my face for something she was not sure she would find there. "She tried to tell me," I said. The words came out hollow and strange, like I was hearing someone else say them from across the room. 6 months ago, she tried to tell me about Michael, and I told her she was reading too much into things. Lily's breath caught in her throat. She pressed her lips together hard. "Dad!" I told her not to worry. My voice broke on the last word. I felt it break, felt the exact moment it gave way, like a hairline fracture finally splitting clean through. I pressed my fist against my mouth and stared at the surface of the table, at the grain of the wood I had refinished myself 15 years ago on a long summer weekend, while Margaret sat on the porch and read and brought me lemonade in the afternoon. "She wasn't reading too much into it," I said. She was right, and I told her she was wrong, and she went and gathered the proof herself, because she knew I wouldn't believe her without it. "She didn't blame you." Lily's voice was fierce and immediate, her hand covering mine on the table, squeezing hard enough that I felt my knuckles pressed together. "Dad, look at me. She did not blame you. I read the end of that letter when I found it this morning, before you came back. She says it plainly. She says she understood exactly why you reacted that way, and she never blamed you for it, and she needed you to know that." I looked at my daughter. Her eyes were streaming now, tears running freely down both sides of her face, her chin trembling, but her voice was steady, and her grip on my hand was iron. She looked so much like her mother in that moment that the ache of it was almost more than I could absorb. "She loved you so much," Lily said. "She spent the last months of her life making sure you would be okay after she was gone. That is who she was. That is who Mom was." I nodded. I could not speak for a moment. Outside, the oak tree stood in the yard. The leaves caught the morning light the way they always did. Margaret's thinking tree, she had called it. I understood now that in those last months, while she sat beside it in her garden chair, and I thought she was simply resting, she had been thinking very hard indeed. I picked up the letter and turned back to where I had stopped reading. Margaret had written, "There is more. Thomas." Turn the page. I turned the page. The second page of the letter was denser than the first, Margaret's handwriting slightly smaller, as though she had realized she had more to say than the paper had room for, and had made the necessary adjustments without starting over. That was so like her. She had never been wasteful, not with paper, not with words, not with anything. She wrote, "Thomas, I need to tell you about the land." I already knew which land she meant. We had 2 parcels, the main lot where the house sat, which we had bought in 1987, and a second parcel directly behind it, a rectangular strip of land measuring just under 1 acre that I had purchased separately in 1993 when the elderly woman who owned it decided to sell, and I had the money from a large highway contract I had just finished. At the time, I bought it because it seemed sensible. I did not want a developer putting a structure up against our back fence. I had never done much with it beyond keeping it mowed. To me, it was just the back lot. Buffer space. Margaret wrote, 6 months ago, I heard Michael use the phrase Pasadena Metro expansion on a phone call in the garage. I wrote it in my diary that night. 2 weeks later, I looked it up. Thomas, I need you to understand what I found. The Pasadena Metro expansion was a planned extension of the Los Angeles Metro system, a new light rail line that transportation planners had been quietly developing for several years. The route had not been officially announced to the public yet, but it had been discussed in county planning documents that were technically available to anyone who knew where to look. The new line would run directly through the east side of Pasadena. Property values along the planned corridor were expected to increase significantly once the route was confirmed. Some estimates suggested doubling within 3 years of the announcement. Our back parcel sat inside that corridor. Margaret wrote Michael works in real estate. Thomas, he has contacts at the county planning office. He knew about this route before most people did. He knew what our back lot would be worth once the announcement came. And he started asking questions about our property, about the deed, about the title, about whether everything was in your name alone, not because he was worried about us. He was calculating. My hand tightened on the paper until the edge cut into my fingers. I thought about the last 2 years. The dinners at our house where Michael had walked the property line in the backyard, hands in his pockets, eyes moving along the fence with the practiced assessment of a man who looked at land for a living. I had thought he was simply interested. He was our son. I had been proud of him, proud of what he had built for himself in Beverly Hills. I had pointed to that back lot more than once and said, "Half an acre of Pasadena, Michael. Not bad for an old engineer." And Michael had smiled and agreed, and I had felt the uncomplicated pleasure of a father watching his son admire something he had built. He had not been admiring it. He had been pricing it. "Dad," Lily's voice pulled me back. She was watching me, with her hands wrapped around her mug, her knuckles white. "What does it say? The back parcel?" I said. "The strip of land behind the yard. You know it's a separate property from the house. I knew you owned extra land back there. I didn't know the details. I bought it in '93. I set the letter down and rubbed the back of my neck. "There's a new metro line being planned through this part of Pasadena. Michael knew about it before it went public. The land is worth considerably more than I ever thought." Lily stared at me. "How much more?" "Margaret doesn't give a number in the letter." I picked the pages back up. "But she says Michael was asking about the deed, about the title documents." I kept reading. "Margaret wrote Thomas, after your last trip to San Diego. In August I went into your office to look for the homeowner's insurance renewal. I found the file where you keep the property documents. The grant deed for the back parcel was there. I made a note of where it was. 2 weeks later, I looked again. It was gone. My stomach turned over completely. A grant deed is the legal document that proves ownership of a piece of real property in California. It records the transfer of title from one party to another and is filed with the county recorder's office when a property changes hands. When I bought the back parcel in 1993, I had received the original grant deed from the seller's attorney and filed it with the Los Angeles County Recorder's Office as required by California law. I kept a copy in my files at home. That copy was gone. Margaret wrote, "I did not say anything to you about this. I know you will ask why, and the answer is the same as before, because I had tried once already to raise concerns about Michael, and you were not ready to hear it. I needed more than a missing document. I needed something you could not explain away. So I kept looking. And Thomas, I need you to understand something important about that deed. The original document being missing from your files does not mean Michael has any legal power over that property. The controlling record is the one filed with the Los Angeles County Recorder's Office. That record cannot be altered without a court order. Whatever Michael took from your files, he took a copy. He cannot take what is already recorded in the public record. I want you to know that. So you do not panic when you realize the document is gone. You have not lost anything that truly matters." I exhaled slowly. Even in this letter, even in the middle of telling me something that made my chest feel like it was being compressed by slow degrees, Margaret was taking care to make sure I had what I needed. She had researched the legal implications. She had thought it through. She had specifically anticipated that I would panic about the missing deed, and had written the explanation in advance so I would not. "The deed to the back lot is missing from my office files," I said to Lily. Lily's eyes went wide. "What? Your mother noticed it. She also says it doesn't matter legally, the county recorder has the official copy on file, but she believes Michael took it from my office." "When she doesn't say exactly," I looked down at the letter, "but she writes that the only person who had access to my office in the relevant window was Michael when he came over after the funeral and said he was helping me look for the insurance paperwork." Lily pushed back from the table. She stood up and walked to the kitchen window and gripped the edge of the counter with both hands, her shoulders rigid, her knuckles pressing white against the tile. A sound came out of her short, sharp, involuntary, the sound of someone absorbing a blow they had half expected, but that still landed harder than they were prepared for. "He went into your office?" she said. Her voice had gone flat and tight the way a wire sounds when it is pulled to its limit. "He said he was helping you look for insurance papers, and he took the deed." "That's what your mother believed, yes." Lily turned around. Her face was flushed, her eyes bright with something that was not quite tears, more like the hot, pressurized feeling that comes before tears when the body has not yet decided whether to cry or to fight. "Dad, I want to throw up," she said with complete honesty. "I know," I said. "I feel the same way." I looked back at the letter. There was one more paragraph on the second page, and Margaret had underlined the opening sentence, something she almost never did. She wrote, "Thomas, there is a diary in the box. Everything I have told you in this letter, I have documented in detail in that diary. Dates, times, the exact words I heard everything. But the diary is only the beginning. There is also a key. The key opens a safe deposit box at First Community Bank. I have been putting things in that box for the past 4 months. Documents, photographs, things I found. I could not keep them in the house. I was afraid they might disappear the way the deed disappeared. Everything you need is in that box, Thomas. Everything I was able to gather for you. I am sorry I could not do more. I am sorry I ran out of time. But I need you to know that I fought for you right up until the end. I love you. I have always loved you. Take care of yourself, and take care of Lily." The letter ended there. No signature. She had not had time, or perhaps had not had the strength to add one. Just the last sentence, and then the edge of the page, and then nothing. I folded the letter along its original creases and set it down carefully in front of me. My hands were not shaking anymore. Something had settled in my chest, not peace, not calm, but a kind of bedrock steadiness that I recognized from the worst moments of my working life, from the times when a structure had failed or a deadline had collapsed, and I had needed to assess the damage clearly before I could begin to fix it. Margaret had been gathering evidence for 4 months. She had kept a diary. She had opened a safe deposit box and filled it with documents I had not yet seen. She had done all of this while managing her illness, her treatments, her pain, and the daily work of saying goodbye to everything she loved. Lily had come back to the table. She sat down across from me and looked at me steadily, waiting. "We need to go to the bank," I said. Lily nodded without hesitation. "When?" I looked at the key on the table. Then I looked at the green diary, still closed, its elastic band intact. "Tonight," I said. "I need to read that diary, every page of it." Lily made dinner. I did not eat much of it. We sat at the kitchen table with the green diary between us, and I turned it over in my hands twice before I opened it. The elastic band had left a faint groove in the cover from being stretched around it for months. When I pulled the band free and opened to the first page, the smell of Margaret's hand lotion came up from the paper, faint, almost imagined, but enough to make me close my eyes for a moment and press my lips together, hard against the feeling that rose in my throat. Lily reached across and covered my hand with hers. "Take your time, Dad." I opened my eyes. "I'm fine," I said. It was not entirely true, but it was true enough to keep going. The diary began in early March. Margaret had written the date at the top of each entry in her careful hand, the way she had always dated her lesson plans and her correspondence. The first entry was brief, just 3 sentences. March 8th. Michael visited today and asked again about the back parcel. He wanted to know if the deed was in Thomas's name alone or if there were any liens on the property. I told him I wasn't sure. I am going to start writing things down. I read that entry 3 times. 3 sentences. My wife had decided in 3 sentences that something was wrong enough to document, and she had been right, and I had been sitting 20 feet away in my office that March evening, reading a structural engineering journal and thinking about nothing more complicated than what we should have for dinner. I kept reading. The entries were methodical and precise, exactly the kind of documentation a woman who had spent 31 years managing a classroom of 8-year-olds would produce. Dates, times, the exact words she had heard, the context, her own assessment of what it meant. She had noted Michael's tone, pleasant casual, the way someone sounds when they are trying very hard not to sound urgent. She had noted Emily's presence during certain conversations, and her absence during others. She had noted the questions that were asked, and just as carefully the questions that were never asked. Michael had never once asked how Margaret was feeling, how her pain levels were, whether she was sleeping. He had asked about the property 4 separate times, in 3 months. I turned to an entry from late April, and my stomach tightened immediately. April 22nd. Emily was on the phone in the kitchen this evening. She did not know I was in the hallway. I heard her say the following, and I am writing it down word for word, because I want Thomas to have the exact language. She said, "Once he signs the POA, we don't need to wait. The listing can go up within 60 days. Then she said something I have been thinking about ever since. She said, "People in grief don't read the fine print." I set the diary down on the table. My hands were trembling now, not the fine tremor of cold or exhaustion, but something deeper and more fundamental, the kind of shaking that starts in the chest and works its way outward. "Emily," I said. The name came out of my mouth like something I needed to remove from it. She said that. She said people in grief don't read the fine print. Lily had gone very still across the table. Her face had drained of color, and she was gripping the edge of the table with both hands, her knuckles pressed white against the wood. "What is a POA?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "Power of attorney," I said. A durable power of attorney is a legal document under California law, California Probate Code, Section 4000 and following, that authorizes another person to manage your financial and legal affairs on your behalf. If I signed one naming Michael as my agent, he would have the legal authority to sell property access bank accounts and enter into contracts in my name. All of it, without asking me again. Lily stared at me. The color had not come back to her face. "Emily is a paralegal," I continued. "She works in a law office. She knows exactly what that document means and exactly how to prepare one, and she was already discussing putting the property listing up within 60 days of me signing it." I picked the diary back up. She had already planned what came after. "Dad!" Lily's voice cracked open down the middle. Her eyes filled so fast that the tears spilled before she could blink against them, running down both sides of her face in clean tracks. She pressed the back of her hand against her mouth. "Dad, they were going to sell your house. They were going to try," I said. I turned to the next entry. Margaret had underlined 2 words at the top of the page, read carefully. Beneath that she had written, "Thomas, I found the emails." Michael left printed copies in the center console of his car. He drove me to my appointment at Huntington on the 14th, and I had to wait in the car while he went to get a parking validation. I read what I could and photographed the rest with my phone before he came back. I put the photographs in the safe deposit box. But I want you to know what I saw in my own words so you hear it from me first. She had written, "He already has a buyer, Thomas." The room seemed to contract around me. I heard Lily make a sound, a short broken sound, like something small and fragile giving way, and I kept my eyes on the page because if I looked up at my daughter's face right then, I was not sure I would be able to keep reading. Margaret had written, "The company is called Pacific Horizon Development. They made an offer. I did not see the number clearly, but I saw enough to know it was significant." Michael replied to their email. He told them he just needed a few more weeks to get the paperwork in order on his end. "Thomas," he wrote that 8 days after my funeral. I know because I saw the date on the email thread. I closed the diary. Outside the backyard was dark now. The oak tree was a silhouette against the last gray light in the western sky. I sat at my kitchen table in the house I had built with my own hands and my wife's vision and 40 years of early mornings, and I understood something that I wished, with everything in me, I did not have to understand. This had been planned, not improvised, not opportunistic, not a bad idea that had grown slowly out of financial desperation. This had been planned in detail before Margaret was even gone. "Dad," Lily's voice was rough and unsteady. She wiped her face with both hands and looked at me across the table. "What do we do?" I looked at the small brass key sitting beside the diary on the table. "Tomorrow morning," I said, "we go to First Community Bank, and we see everything your mother left us." I did not sleep well. I lay in our bed, my bed now, though I still could not think of it that way, and stared at the ceiling for most of the night. The green diary was on the nightstand beside me. I had read it through twice after Lily went home, sitting at the kitchen table under the single overhead light, turning pages, slowly taking in everything Margaret had recorded, with the same careful attention she had given to everything in her life. By the time I turned off the light, I understood the full shape of what had been building around me without my knowledge, and understanding it did not make sleep any easier. Lily picked me up at 8 in the morning. She looked like she had not slept either. There were shadows under her eyes that her practical, no-nonsense expression could not quite conceal, and she was gripping the steering wheel of her car with both hands at 10 and 2, the way she had when she first got her license at 16. I did not say anything about it, neither did she. First Community Bank was 4 blocks from the house on Lake Avenue, a branch we had used for over 20 years. The manager on duty was a woman in her 40s named Patricia, who recognized me immediately and expressed her condolences about Margaret with a warmth that made my throat tighten unexpectedly. I thanked her and explained what I needed. Accessing a safe deposit box after the death of the primary account holder requires documentation in California, a certified copy of the death certificate proof of identity, and in cases where the box was held jointly, or where a designated successor has been named the appropriate authorization. Margaret, it turned out, had added my name as a joint holder of the box when she opened it 4 months ago. Patricia confirmed this after checking the records, and within 15 minutes, she was leading Lily and me down a short corridor to the vault room. The box was small, roughly the size of a shoebox, and heavier than I expected when Patricia set it on the table in the small private room adjacent to the vault. She left us alone and closed the door behind her. Lily and I stood on either side of the table and looked at the box. "Okay," Lily said. She pulled in a slow breath. "Okay, let's see what she left us." I put the key in the lock and turned it. Inside the box was a brown envelope thick with documents. Beneath it was Margaret's phone, an older model, the one she had used before she switched to the newer one last year. I picked up the phone first. The screen was dark. When I pressed the side button, it came to life asking for a passcode. I entered Margaret's birthday, the same passcode she had used for every device she had owned since smartphones existed. The screen unlocked. Her Photos app was open. Lily leaned over my shoulder as I scrolled through. The most recent photos, taken over several weeks based on the timestamps, were images of printed documents, pages of emails. Some were partially cut off at the edges, photographed quickly and at slight angles, the way you photograph something when you have only a few minutes and cannot risk being seen. Others were clearer, laid flat on a surface and shot from directly above. I enlarged the first image. It was the top half of an email chain. The sender's address was Michael's, his professional account, the one with his name and his brokerage. The recipient was a company called Crestline Property Group, with an address on Wilshire Boulevard in Beverly Hills. My jaw tightened. "Crestline Property Group," Lily said quietly, reading over my shoulder. "Do you know them?" "No," I said, "but I know someone who might." I scrolled to the next image and the next. The email chain was long. Margaret had photographed what she could reach before Michael returned from the parking kiosk, which meant some sections were missing, but enough remained to establish the substance of what was being discussed. Michael had been in contact with Crestline for at least 6 weeks before Margaret passed. He had described the property in detail, both parcels, the square footage, the zoning, the condition of the main structure. He had described the owner. He had written, "Owner is elderly, recently widowed, no current legal representation. Cooperative disposition. Timeline should be manageable once the necessary paperwork is executed." I read that sentence twice. The words cooperative disposition and no current legal representation sat in my stomach like cold stones. My son had written about me the way a developer writes about an obstacle to be managed. Not a person, not a father, not a man who had built things with his hands for 4 decades. An obstacle with a cooperative disposition and no lawyer. "Dad." Lily's voice had dropped to something very quiet and very controlled. "He described you like a transaction." "Yes," I said. "He did." I set the phone down and opened the brown envelope. Inside were printed copies of documents, some of which matched the photographs on Margaret's phone, others which appeared to be additional pages she had accessed through other means. Among them was a draft document I recognized immediately from the terminology Margaret had described in the diary. A durable power of attorney prepared under California probate code, with Michael James Miller listed as the agent and Thomas Edward Miller listed as the principal. It was not signed. It had not been executed, but it was complete. Every section filled and every legal requirement addressed the language precise and professionally drafted. Emily's work, without question. At the bottom of the stack was a single printed email dated 8 days after Margaret's funeral. The recipient was a company called Pacific Horizon Development LLC, with an address in Century City. The email was from Michael's account. It read in its entirety, "Offer looks good on our end. We just need a few more weeks to get the paperwork in order. We'll be in touch shortly. $2.1 million. That was the number in the offer Pacific Horizon had made. $2.1 million for both parcels, the house and the back lot, together to be developed as part of a mixed-use commercial project, pending the Metro Corridor announcement. Lily had gone very still beside me. She was staring at the printed email in my hand, with an expression I had never seen on her face before. Something beyond anger, beyond hurt. A kind of hollow recognition, like a person standing in the wreckage of something that used to be familiar. She said, her voice barely audible, "He stood at her grave and then went home and sent that email. Yes, he was already negotiating." She pressed both hands flat on the table and I could see them trembling, a fine, constant tremor that she was not trying to hide or control. He stood at her grave, and then he went home and he sent that email. I did not answer because there was nothing to say that the email had not already said more clearly than I ever could. I put everything back into the envelope carefully, the way you handle something that matters. I picked up Margaret's phone and slipped it into my jacket pocket. Then I picked up the brown envelope and held it against my chest. "We need a lawyer," I said. Lily straightened up. She wiped her hands on her jeans once quickly, and then she was steady again, the way she steadied herself at work. I imagined when things in the hospital were bad and someone needed her to be capable rather than devastated. She nodded. "I'll call around today," she said. "Estate law. Someone who knows elder financial law in California." "Good." I looked around the small room, the blank walls, the single light overhead, the locked vault on the other side of the corridor door. "Your mother sat in a room like this one," I said, "and put all of this together for me, knowing she was running out of time." Lily's chin trembled. She pressed her lips together hard and breathed through her nose. "She loved you more than anything," she said when she could speak again. "She fought for you right up until the end, just like she said." I nodded. I was not going to be able to speak for a moment, so I did not try. I held the envelope a little tighter and walked toward the door. Carol Bennett had been practicing estate law and elder financial law in Pasadena for over 20 years. Lily had found her through a referral from a colleague at Cedars-Sinai, a nurse whose family had used Carol during a complicated trust dispute 2 years earlier. Carol's office was on South Lake Avenue, 7 blocks from the bank, on the 3rd floor of a quiet building, with potted ferns in the lobby and the kind of unhurried atmosphere that told you the people who worked there dealt with serious things and did not rush them. Her assistant showed me in at 2 in the afternoon. Carol was 54 years old, small and precise in her movements, with reading glasses pushed up on top of her head, and a legal pad already open on the desk in front of her. She shook my hand firmly, looked at me directly, and said, "Mr. Miller, tell me everything. Start at the beginning and don't leave anything out." So I did. I talked for 40 minutes without stopping. I laid the brown envelope on her desk and walked her through each document. The diary, the photographs from Margaret's phone, the email chain, with Crestline Property Group, the Pacific Horizon, offer the draft power of attorney. Carol did not interrupt. She made notes on her legal pad in small, tight handwriting, and occasionally she picked up a document and held it close to read a specific section, but she did not speak until I had finished. Then she put down her pen and looked at me. "Mr. Miller," she said, "your wife filed an amended trust and will 5 months before she passed, at an estate planning firm in Glendale. I've already pulled the public filing." I stared at her. "I didn't know about that." "She used a firm completely separate from any attorney your family had previously worked with," Carol said. "Deliberate choice in my opinion. The amended documents specify 3 things. First, the main house is designated as a life estate for you, meaning you have the absolute legal right to live there for the remainder of your life, and no one, including anyone holding a power of attorney, can force a sale of that property while you are alive." The pressure in my chest loosened by exactly 1 degree. Second, Carol continued, "The back parcel is to be held jointly among you, Michael and Lily, with a requirement that all 3 parties must consent before any sale can occur. Michael cannot sell that land without both your signature and Lily's." She paused. "And third, this is the clause your wife clearly thought hardest about. If any legal action is initiated concerning the estate within 5 years of Margaret's death, Michael's share of the back parcel transfers automatically to Lily." I sat back in my chair. The room felt very quiet. "She set a trap," I said. "She set a protection," Carol said with precision. "There is a difference. A trap implies bad faith. What your wife did was anticipate a specific threat and build a legal response to it before the threat could materialize." She tapped her pen against the legal pad. "The attorney in Glendale kept detailed notes from every session with Margaret. She was clear, consistent, and explicit about her intentions each time. That documentation will be our strongest evidence if this goes to court." "Michael knows about the amended will," I said. It was not a question. "He does. It was filed with the probate court after Margaret passed it, becomes public record at that point. Any attorney worth his retainer would have pulled it within days of the funeral." Carol looked at me steadily. "Which means Michael knows about the life estate clause and the consent requirement. And that tells us something important about why he is pushing the power of attorney so aggressively. He wants me to sign before probate closes. I said, understanding it as I said it. Because a valid POA can give him authority over my financial decisions while I'm still alive, authority that exists alongside the will, not instead of it. Correct. Carol nodded once. He is not trying to override the will directly. He is trying to get you to voluntarily hand him the authority the will prevents him from taking by force. She let that sit for a moment. There is one more thing I found, Mr. Miller, regarding Emily. I waited. Carol set her pen down. While you were talking, I ran a few searches on my office system, Carol said. 14 months ago, Emily filed a postnuptial agreement with Michael in Los Angeles County. A postnuptial agreement is a legal contract signed after marriage that establishes how assets and liabilities will be divided between spouses. In this case, the agreement separates Emily's personal assets from Michael's financial liabilities, specifically a substantial debt of approximately $680,000 connected to a failed investment in Nevada. My jaw tightened. She protected herself? She protected her assets from his creditors, Carol said, which means if Michael's investment debt is called in, and from what you've shown me, that timeline may be approaching, Emily does not go down with him. Carol set her pen down. However, the agreement does not prevent the two of them from sharing proceeds if a transaction is successfully completed. She is insulated from his losses. She would still benefit from his gains. I thought about Emily pouring my coffee that morning at Michael's kitchen island. The fresh mug, the sourdough toast, the warm hand on my arm. I want to make sure you're okay before you head out. The nausea that moved through me was slow and thorough. What do I do now? I asked. Carol picked her pen back up. Now, she said, you go home. You behave normally. You do not confront Michael or Emily. You do not move money cancel accounts or change any financial arrangements. You let them believe they are still on schedule. She looked at me over the rims of her glasses. And you let me do my job. I nodded. One more thing, Carol said as I stood to leave. Your wife, Mr. Miller. She glanced down at the brown envelope on her desk. She did not just leave you evidence. She left you a legal fortress. She planned this more carefully than most attorneys I know. I picked up my jacket from the back of the chair. Yes, I said. She did. Pretending to be fine is exhausting work. I had not fully understood that before. I had always thought of myself as a private man, someone who kept his interior life orderly, and contained who did not broadcast his feelings to the room. 38 years of engineering had reinforced that tendency. On a job site, you solved problems. You did not narrate them. But there is a difference between being private and being actively deceptive, and for 3 days after my meeting with Carol, I practiced deception with a thoroughness that left me drained by evening in a way that physical labor never had. Michael called on the first morning, just after 7. I was standing at the kitchen counter drinking coffee and watching the oak tree in the backyard catch the early light. And when his name appeared on my phone screen, I felt my jaw tighten involuntarily before I answered. Dad! His voice was warm, easy, the voice of a man who believed everything was proceeding according to schedule. How are you doing? Did you sleep okay? Better than the night before, I said. Technically true. Good, that's good. A brief pause. Emily wanted me to check in. She's been worried about you. I looked at the oak tree through the window. I thought about Emily on a phone call in my kitchen, saying people in grief don't read the fine print, and I kept my voice level and warm and said, tell her I appreciate that. You've both been very kind. Michael said he was glad. He mentioned the paperwork again, not urgently, just a reminder, the way you remind someone about a dentist appointment. He said there was no rush, but that whenever I felt ready, they could come by and walk me through everything together. I told him I was almost there. He said he was glad to hear it. After I hung up, I stood at the counter for a long time, with both hands wrapped around my mug, staring at nothing, breathing slowly through my nose the way you breathe when you are trying to keep something large and sharp from moving too fast inside your chest. On the second day, I went into my office. I had been avoiding it since the funeral, not consciously, but the way you avoid a room where something painful happened, circling it without quite acknowledging that you are doing so. I sat down at my desk and opened the filing cabinet and went through the property documents folder, methodically the way I would have assessed damage to a structure. I confirmed what Margaret had written in the diary. The original copy of the grant deed for the back parcel was gone. Every other document was exactly where it should have been. Insurance policies, tax records, the deed to the main house, the vehicle titles. Only one thing was missing, the thing Michael had needed. I closed the filing cabinet and sat for a moment with my hands flat on the desk. The desk where I had worked for 30 years. The desk where Margaret used to set a cup of coffee down beside my elbow on weekend mornings without interrupting whatever I was reading, because she had always understood the particular rhythm of the way I worked. I pressed my hand against the surface of the desk and let myself feel it. Not the anger, not yet, but the grief underneath the anger. The simpler and more fundamental loss of understanding that the people who should have been safe were not. On the third day, I called Richard. He came over that afternoon, settling into the porch chair he had occupied at various points over the past 28 years, as though he had never left it. I told him everything. He listened the way retired police officers listen, without visible reaction, without interrupting processing and filing each piece of information as it arrived. When I finished, he was quiet for a moment that had weight and intention to it, and then he stood up and said, "Stay here." He went home and came back 10 minutes later with his phone. "I should have shown you this sooner," he said. "I wasn't sure it was my place." He held the phone out to me. On the screen was a photograph. It had been taken from the side window of Richard's house looking across the fence line toward my front yard. The image was slightly zoomed, slightly grainy at the edges the way phone photos get when you are shooting through glass. But the subject was clear. A woman was standing in my front yard 4 days after Margaret's funeral. She was holding a camera, a proper digital camera, not a phone, and she was photographing the front of my house. The facade, the windows, the front door, the garden beds Margaret had planted along the walk. The woman's face was turned partially toward the camera at the moment Richard had taken the shot, and even through the slight distortion of the zoom, the face was unmistakable. Emily, not an employee of Crestline Property Group, not a real estate assessor hired to conduct a professional valuation. Emily herself, in a gray coat I had seen her wear to family dinners, standing in my front yard 4 days after we buried her mother-in-law, photographing my house, so she could prepare a listing draft for a property she had not yet found a way to make hers. My hand tightened around the phone until I felt the case press into my palm. "She came twice," Richard said. His voice was flat and factual. "The first time was about 3 weeks before Margaret passed. A man came that time. I didn't recognize him. He walked the perimeter, looked at the back fence line, spent about 20 minutes. I wrote down the plate. He reached into his shirt pocket and handed me a folded piece of paper. I ran it through some old contacts. The vehicle is registered to Crestline Property Group, Wilshire Boulevard, Beverly Hills. I looked at the plate number on the paper, then back at the photograph of Emily on the phone screen. The name, Crestline Property Group, on that paper confirmed what I had already seen on Margaret's phone, but seeing it tied to a vehicle, to a physical presence outside my house, made it real in a way that a photographed email had not. "Margaret asked you to watch the house," I said. Richard nodded slowly. "Last spring. She called me over for coffee one afternoon while you were at a doctor's appointment. She didn't tell me why. She just said, 'Richard, if you ever see anything at Thomas's house that doesn't feel right, I need you to hold on to it for me. Don't say anything to Thomas yet. Just hold on to it.'" He looked at me steadily. So I did. The pain that moved through me then was not anger. It was something quieter and more devastating, the image of Margaret already sick, already running out of time, sitting at her kitchen table with Richard and thinking 3 moves ahead, placing her pieces on the board carefully and deliberately, doing everything she could to protect me from a threat I had refused to see. She had been fighting for me before I even knew there was a fight. "Thank you," I said to Richard. My voice came out rough and uneven. "For doing what she asked." Richard reached over and gripped my shoulder once briefly, the way men of his generation express the things they do not put into words. Then he sat back in his chair and looked out at the yard. "What are you going to do?" he asked. I looked at the photograph of Emily on the phone screen one more time. Then I handed the phone back to Richard. "I'm going to have dinner," I said, "and I'm going to invite the whole family. If you are still here with me on Revenge Dad, I want to know. Before I tell you what I decided to do next, drop the number 8 in the comments right now. Just the number 8. It tells me you have been listening, and that means everything to me. What I'm about to share next changed the course of everything, and I do not want you to miss it. Please be aware this story contains fictional elements created for entertainment and educational purposes. Some details may not reflect any specific situation. If this type of content is not for you, it is completely okay to step away now. I called Lily that evening. She answered on the first ring the way she always did when she knew I might need her, a habit she had developed during Margaret's illness, keeping her phone close and her ringer on even during hospital shifts when the rules technically required otherwise. I had never told her how much that meant to me. I was going to have to start saying more of the things I had always assumed people knew. Dad? Her voice was alert immediately. What happened? Nothing new, I said. I'm all right, but I need to ask you something and I need you to answer me honestly. A pause. Okay. When Michael called you, I said, the call you mentioned where he asked if Mom had left something behind. When exactly was that? The pause this time was longer. I heard her exhale slowly on the other end of the line. 2 weeks before I found the box, she said. And what did he say exactly? His exact words, Lily, if you can remember them. Another breath. When she spoke again, her voice had tightened the way it tightens when you are recalling something that made you feel cornered. He said, Lily, I've been thinking, you know how Mom was? Toward the end, she was on a lot of medication, she was emotional. She might have done things that seemed important to her at the time, but that could cause problems for the family later. He said, if you find anything, documents, letters, anything like that, I need you to bring it to me first, before Dad gets overwhelmed. I stood at the kitchen window in the gathering dark and let that settle, before Dad gets overwhelmed. What did you tell him? I asked. I told him I didn't know what he was talking about. Her voice went hard and flat on those words the way Lily's voice went when she had made a decision and was not going to be moved from it. And then I hung up, and then I drove to Pasadena the next morning and started looking. You didn't find it that first time. No, Mom said the oak tree, but she didn't tell me where exactly. The roots go out a long way in every direction. I came back 3 more times over the next 2 weeks early in the morning before you came outside, and I couldn't find it. A short, tight sound, not quite a laugh. The morning you were leaving for Oregon was the first time I had enough daylight and enough time alone in the yard to really search. I'd been waiting for a window like that for days. I thought about what that meant. My daughter had been driving to Pasadena before dawn, creeping into my backyard in the dark, digging quietly under the oak tree so she could find something her mother had hidden before her brother could find it first. While I was inside the house, sleeping or drinking coffee or sitting in my office reading structural journals, Lily had been in the yard fighting a battle I did not know was happening. Why didn't you tell me? I asked. My voice came out lower and rougher than I intended. Because Mom asked me not to. Lily's voice cracked on the word Mom, split cleanly down the middle. She pulled in a breath and kept going. She said when she told me about the box, she made me promise not to say anything to you until you found it yourself. She said you needed to find it on your terms, not have it handed to you. She said if I told you you'd want to investigate right away, and that could tip Michael off before she had enough in place to protect you. A pause. She was protecting you, Dad. She was protecting you from the moment she realized what was happening. The kitchen felt very small around me. I sat down at the table because my legs had decided they were done holding me up without my permission, and I put my elbow on the table and my forehead in my hand and stayed there for a moment. Dad. Lily's voice came through the phone, pressed to my ear, urgent and close. Dad, talk to me. I'm here, I said. Are you okay? I thought about that honestly. My wife had spent her last month sick and in pain and frightened, and instead of letting herself simply rest in whatever peace was available to her, she had spent that time building a legal structure to protect me, coordinating with her daughter, recruiting a neighbor, photographing documents in the front seat of a car outside a hospital while a parking timer ran down. She had done all of that without telling me, because she knew me well enough to know that if she had told me, I would have done exactly what she feared, dismissed, it minimized. It told her she was reading too much into things. She had loved me in a way that accounted for my limitations. No, I said honestly, I'm not entirely okay, but I think I will be. Lily made a sound something between a sob and a steadying breath, the sound of someone holding themselves together through sheer determination. I should have told you sooner, she said. I know that. I've been sick about it since the day I found out. You did what your mother asked you to do, I said. That's not something you need to apologize for. I still feel like I let you down. Lily? I pressed my hand flat on the table. You got up before dawn and drove to Pasadena and dug in the dark so your brother couldn't get there first. You did not let me down. She cried then properly, not the controlled kind she had been managing since the morning, but the full kind, the kind that takes over for a few seconds and cannot be argued with. I held the phone and listened to my daughter cry and felt the specific helplessness of a parent who cannot fix what is broken, who can only stay present while it moves through. After a moment, she steadied again. I heard her pull in 3 deliberate breaths, the way she had learned to do in the emergency department when the situation required her to be functional, regardless of what she felt. "Okay," she said, rough-voiced and resolute. "Okay, what do we do now?" "I'm going to invite Michael and Emily to Sunday dinner," I said. "I want you there, and I want you to ask Richard if he's free." A beat of silence. Then very quietly, "You're going to show them everything." "Yes," I said, "but not until they think they've already won." Lily exhaled. When she spoke again, the crying was gone, and something steadier had taken its place. Something that reminded me with a force that pressed behind my eyes of the way her mother used to sound when she had made up her mind about something important. "I'll be there," she said. "What time do you want me?" "Early," I said. "Come early and help me cook." After I hung up, I sat at the kitchen table in the quiet house for a long time. The oak tree was invisible now, in the full dark of the yard, but I knew exactly where it was. I had looked at it every day for 30 years. Margaret had chosen it for a reason. She had always said, a good foundation starts with what you put in the ground. They came on Saturday afternoon. I had spent the morning doing ordinary things with deliberate care, watering the garden, wiping down the kitchen counters, folding laundry that had been sitting in the dryer for 2 days. Small domestic acts that Margaret had always handled without fanfare, and that I had never paid much attention to until they became mine alone to manage. I found that doing them helped, not because they distracted me from what was coming, but because they reminded me that the house was still functioning, still intact, still mine. Michael's car pulled into the driveway at 2 in the afternoon. I watched from the kitchen window as they got out Michael, in a pressed button-down shirt, Emily carrying a white bakery box tied with ribbon, both of them moving with the relaxed confidence of people who believed the afternoon was going to go exactly as planned. I opened the front door before they could knock. "Dad." Michael stepped forward and hugged me, and I hugged him back with the same pressure I always had because I did not want him to feel anything different in my arms. "You look better. You getting some rest?" "More than before," I said. "Come in, I just made coffee." Emily handed me the bakery box with both hands and a warm smile. "Apple cake from that place on Colorado you like. We thought it might be nice." "That was thoughtful," I said. "Thank you." I meant neither of those things. I said them both with complete conviction. We sat at the kitchen table, the same table where I had read Margaret's letter 4 days ago, where I had turned pages of the diary under the single overhead light, where Lily had gripped my hand and told me she had me. I poured coffee into 3 mugs and set the cake on a plate and arranged everything the way Margaret would have, because I needed something to do with my hands that was not reaching across the table and asking my son directly why he had taken a document from my filing cabinet. "How's everything been?" Michael asked. He wrapped both hands around his mug the way he had since he was a teenager, thumbs overlapping on top. "Quiet around here." "Quiet," I agreed. "I've been going through some things, getting organized." Emily's eyes moved to mine briefly when I said that a quick assessment I was not supposed to notice. I did not react to it. "That's actually something we wanted to talk to you about," Michael said. He reached down beside his chair and lifted a manila folder onto the table. He set it between us with the casual ease of a man who had rehearsed this moment. "Dad, we've been thinking a lot about your situation, and we just want to make sure everything is structured properly, so you don't have to worry about managing it all alone." "I appreciate that," I said. He opened the folder. Inside was the durable power of attorney, the same document I had seen printed in Margaret's safe deposit box, the same precise formatting, the same language Emily had drafted. It looked official. It looked reasonable. I imagined exactly the way it was supposed to look, to a 66-year-old man sitting alone in a quiet house 1 month after losing his wife. "This is just a power of attorney," Michael said, turning the document to face me. "It means that if anything ever comes up, a financial decision, a property matter, anything you need handled, I can step in and take care of it on your behalf. You stay in full control. This just gives me the ability to help when you need it." I picked up the document and read it. I read every line of it. I read it the way I read structural plans methodically section by section, looking for the load-bearing elements and the points of potential failure. Michael watched me read with an expression of patient encouragement. Emily sipped her coffee and kept her expression pleasant and open. The document was comprehensive, Under its terms, Michael would have the authority to manage cell lease or otherwise dispose of any real property in my name. He would have access to my bank accounts, my investment accounts, and my retirement funds. He could enter into contracts on my behalf. He could make financial decisions without consulting me. She had written at the bottom of the third page a small notation. Notary to be arranged upon signing Karen available Saturday. Karen. A notary named Karen, ready and waiting. Emily had thought of everything. Under California law, a durable power of attorney requires either 2 adult witnesses or a licensed notary public to be legally valid. Emily had already arranged the notary. She had a name and a day. All that was missing was my signature. I set the document down on the table. "It's thorough," I said. Michael leaned forward slightly. "We just want to protect you, Dad." I looked at my son across the table. He held my gaze with the steady, earnest expression of a man who had convinced himself, at least partially, that what he was saying was true. I had always been good at reading structures, at understanding where the strength was and where the facade was holding up something that could not support its own weight. I looked at my son, and I saw both. "You know what I'd like to do," I said. I set the document down and folded my hands on top of it. "Before we do any of this, I'd like to have a proper family dinner, all of us together. It's been too long since we've sat down as a family without it being—" I paused, let the right word arrive. "Without it being sad." Michael glanced at Emily. Something moved between them, quick, almost imperceptible, the kind of look that passes between 2 people who have a shared agenda and have just received unexpected news. "Of course," Emily said smoothly before Michael could respond. "That would be really nice, Thomas." "Sunday," I said. "Come for dinner, Sunday evening. Lily will be here." I smiled at them both. "It'll be good to have everyone around the table again." Michael reached across and covered my hand with his, and I felt the warmth of his palm and thought about the 5-year-old boy who used to fall asleep against my arm on long car trips, and the 41-year-old man who had replied to a real estate offer 8 days after his mother's funeral, and I kept my hand very still and let him hold it. "Sunday sounds perfect," he said. "We'll be here." After they left, I stood at the kitchen window and watched Michael's car reverse out of the driveway and disappear up the street. The bakery box was still on the counter. Apple cake from the place on Colorado. A small, considered gesture designed to make me feel cared for. I picked up my phone and sent 2 text messages. The first was to Lily. "Sunday dinner, confirmed. Come at 4. Bring Richard if he'll come." The second was to Carol. "Meeting is Sunday evening. I'll need you to advise on next steps Monday morning." Then I cut a slice of the apple cake because I had not eaten since breakfast, and I sat at the kitchen table and ate it slowly, and I thought about everything Margaret had built for me in the months before she left, and I thought about how I was not going to let any of it go to waste. The next day, Sunday, Lily arrived at 4 o'clock exactly when I had asked her to. She came through the back door, the way she always had since she was a teenager, knocking once and letting herself in without waiting for an answer, setting her bag on the counter, moving into the kitchen, with the particular ease of someone who had grown up in this room. She was wearing her hair down, which she rarely did, and she had changed out of her work clothes into jeans and a dark green sweater. She looked like her mother in the sweater. I did not tell her that. I thought it would make one or both of us cry, and we needed to stay clear-headed. "How are you doing?" she asked, coming around the island to hug me properly, both arms firm, the kind of hug that asks a real question. "I'm steady," I said, and meant it. She pulled back and looked at my face the way nurses look at people assessing, quickly and thoroughly. Whatever she found there seemed to satisfy her, because she nodded once and moved to the refrigerator. "What are we making?" "Pot roast," I said. "Your mother's recipe." Lily went still with one hand on the refrigerator door. Her back was to me, but I saw the slight shift in her shoulders, the small, involuntary motion of someone absorbing a small blow. "Good," she said after a moment. "That's exactly right." We cooked together for 2 hours. It was the most normal I had felt since Margaret died, the smell of the onions in the pan, the familiar weight of the cast-iron Dutch oven, Lily standing at the counter, chopping carrots the way her mother had taught her, with her fingers curled back away from the blade. We did not talk much. What we said was practical: how long for the vegetables, whether the oven was running hot, where I kept the fresh thyme, now that Margaret had reorganized the spice cabinet last spring. Small questions with small answers, and underneath them, the unspoken awareness of what the evening was going to become. Richard arrived at 5:30, wearing a collared shirt I had never seen before. He shook my hand at the door and said, "You ready?" And I said yes. And he nodded and came inside and sat in the living room with a glass of water and did not say anything more, because Richard had spent 30 years knowing when a situation required patience and when it required action, and he understood which one this was. Michael and Emily arrived at 6. I heard the car in the driveway and felt something tighten in my chest. Not fear, not quite, but the particular physical sensation of a structure bracing for a load it knows is coming. I dried my hands on the kitchen towel, set it on the counter beside the stove, and walked to the front door. Michael was holding a bottle of red wine. Emily was beside him in a cream-colored blouse, her dark hair pulled back, her expression warm and composed. They looked like a couple arriving for a pleasant family dinner, which was exactly what they believed they were doing. "Dad," Michael stepped in and hugged me. His arms were solid and familiar around my back. "Smells amazing in here." "Pot roast," I said. "Mom's recipe." He pulled back and something moved across his face. Something genuine, I thought, a flicker of real grief beneath the performance. I looked at it and let myself see it clearly because I needed to understand that Michael was not entirely the man I had been discovering in those pages. He was also still the boy who had loved his mother. Both things were true. Neither one canceled the other out. "Mom's recipe," I confirmed. Emily kissed my cheek and handed me the wine. "We brought a Napa Cabernet," she said. "We thought it might go nicely." "That was thoughtful," I said. We moved to the dining room. I had set the table carefully. The good dishes that Margaret kept for occasions, the cloth napkins she had ironed and folded into precise rectangles. The candles in the brass holders her mother had left her. The table looked the way it had looked on every significant family evening for 30 years. It looked, I imagine, like exactly the kind of table a man sets when he has made peace with something and is ready to move forward. At the head of the table, I had left the Margaret's chair empty. Michael noticed it immediately. His eyes went to the empty chair and stayed there for a moment, and something in his jaw shifted. I watched it happen and did not look away. "Sit wherever you're comfortable," I said. Lily brought the pot roast from the kitchen. Richard carried the bread. We settled into our seats, and for a few minutes the room was full of the ordinary sounds of a family dinner, serving spoons against the Dutch oven, wine being poured, the small negotiations of who wanted what and how much. Michael lifted his glass. "I want to say something," he said. He looked around the table at me, at Lily, at Richard, at the empty chair at the head of the table. "To Mom, who made this house a home for all of us." His voice was steady and sure. "And to Dad, who we're all here to support." Lily looked down at her plate. Her jaw was tight and her fork was very still in her hand. Richard raised his glass and took one slow sip and set it down without comment. I raised my glass and drank and thought about the 8-day email and the draft power of attorney and the photograph of Emily standing in my front yard with a camera, and I set my glass down gently on the cloth napkin and picked up my fork. We ate. Michael talked about a property he was working on in Los Feliz, about a restaurant in Pasadena. He thought I should try about a home improvement project he and Emily had been planning. He was good at dinner conversation. He always had been. He could carry a table through an awkward silence and make it feel like ease, which was, I suppose, part of what made him effective at his work. Emily watched me throughout the meal with a care that was just slightly too attentive. Her eyes moved to my face at regular intervals, checking, assessing, reading the room the way she always did. Once, when I reached for the bread basket, her gaze dropped briefly to my hands and then came back up to my face, and I understood she was looking for signs of the thing she was counting on. Grief, softness. A man who was ready to stop fighting something he did not yet know he was fighting. I gave her nothing to read. When the plates were cleared and Lily had brought coffee to the table, Michael set his cup down and reached beside his chair. He lifted the manila folder onto the table and placed it in the center between the candles and the empty bread basket with the ease of a man who had timed this moment carefully and believed it had arrived. That he said, his voice gentle and certain, "I think tonight might be a good time to take care of this. We're all here. It feels right." He slid the folder toward me. "You'd just be signing one document. It won't take 10 minutes. I looked at the folder in the center of the table. I looked at Michael. I looked at Lily, who was holding her coffee cup with both hands and looking at the tablecloth with an expression of absolute practiced stillness. I looked at Richard, who was sitting back in his chair with his arms folded, watching Michael with the flat, patient attention of a man who had spent 30 years waiting for people to reveal themselves. Then I looked back at Michael and said very calmly, "You're right, let's get everything out on the table tonight." I pushed back my chair and stood up and walked to my office. I came back from my office carrying the green diary, Margaret's phone, and my laptop. I set all three on the dining table beside the folder Michael had placed there. Then I sat down. I did not rush. I did not explain. I simply sat down and opened the diary to the first entry and placed it in the center of the table where everyone could see Margaret's handwriting. Michael stared at the diary. The color in his face shifted not dramatically, just enough. The warmth that had been there all evening cooled by several degrees. "What is that?" he asked. "Your mother left it for me," I said, "along with some other things." I opened the diary to the April entry. I read it aloud in my own voice at the same table where Margaret had sat across from me for 31 years. April 22nd. Emily was on the phone in the kitchen this evening. She did not know I was in the hallway. I heard her say, "Once he signs the POA, we don't need to wait. The listing can go up within 60 days. I looked up. "And then your mother wrote one more line. She wrote Emily also said, 'People in grief don't read the fine print.'" The room went completely still. Emily's coffee cup was halfway to her lips. She set it down on the saucer without making a sound. Her face had not changed, but something behind her eyes had a quick internal recalculation, the kind you see in someone who has just understood that the ground they were standing on is no longer solid. Michael's jaw tightened. "Dad, a diary isn't—" "I know," I said. "A diary alone isn't enough. Your mother knew that too." I picked up her phone and turned the screen toward the table. "So she photographed the emails she found in your car while you were getting parking validation at Huntington Hospital. While she was sick and exhausted and running out of time, she sat in the front seat and photographed every page she could reach before you came back." Michael's hands gripped the edge of the table. I connected the laptop to the television in the living room. The screen came to life. The first email appeared: Michael's professional account, Crestline Property Group, Wilshire Boulevard. I scrolled slowly, letting everyone read. Lily made a sound, short and voluntary, as though something had pressed the air out of her chest. I kept scrolling. When I reached email 19, I stopped. "Pacific Horizon Development, LLC, Century City. An offer of $2.1 million for both parcels." And Michael's reply, clean and businesslike and completely certain of itself: "Offer looks good on our end. We just need a few more weeks to get the paperwork in order. We'll be in touch shortly." The date stamp sat at the top of the email like a verdict. 8 days after Margaret's funeral. Richard looked at the screen. Then he looked at Michael. He did not say a word. He did not need to. Michael pushed back slightly from the table. "Dad, those emails are out of context. This was preliminary. Nothing was ever finalized," I said. "I know, because I never signed anything." I reached into the folder beside my laptop and placed a photograph on the table. Richard's photograph. Emily in a gray coat, standing in my front yard, a digital camera in her hands 4 days after we buried her mother-in-law. "Richard took this. He had been keeping an eye on the house. Your mother asked him to." Emily looked at the photograph. For the first time all evening, she had nothing to say. Her composure, that careful, practiced composure she had maintained through every course of the meal, through every exchange, through every moment she had sat at my wife's table, eating my wife's food, cracked. Just slightly, just enough. She pushed her chair back and stood up. "Excuse me," she said quietly. "I need some air." She walked to the front door and opened it and went outside. We heard the click of the latch behind her. A minute later, we heard a car engine start. She did not come back. Michael sat at the table with the photograph in front of him, and the emails on the television screen, and his mother's handwriting open on the diary beside his wine glass. He looked at all of it for a long moment, his face working through something I could not name, not quite shame, not quite grief, something that sat between them and had no clean word. I closed the laptop. The screen went dark. "Michael," I said. He looked at me. "I think it's time for us to talk." Lily and Richard stood up without being asked. Lily touched my shoulder once as she passed a brief firm pressure that said everything she could not say out loud, and then she and Richard moved to the kitchen and pulled the door most of the way closed behind them. I heard the quiet sounds of dishes being stacked, water running, small, deliberate acts of giving us privacy. Michael and I sat at opposite ends of the table. The candles had burned low. Margaret's empty chair sat between us, at the head of the table, the way it had all evening, patient and still and completely present in its absence. Michael was looking at the tablecloth. His hands were flat on either side of his plate, fingers spread, and I could see that he was breathing carefully the way you breathe when you are deciding what version of yourself to be in the next few minutes. I did not give him time to construct one. "Michael," I said, "I'm not going to ask you why. I think I already know why." He looked up. His eyes were red at the edges in a way I had not noticed during dinner. "Dad, let me finish." My voice came out steady. Not cold, not hard. Just steady the way a foundation is steady. Not because it feels nothing, but because it was built to hold. "I have spent 4 days reading everything your mother left me. I know about the debt. I know about the timeline. I know about Pacific Horizon and Crestline and the power of attorney, and the legal alternatives your attorney had outlined if I refused to sign." Michael's breath caught audibly. His shoulders dropped forward slightly as though something he had been holding up had become too heavy. "I know all of it," I said, "and I want you to hear me clearly when I tell you this." I leaned forward slightly. "I am not angry at you." He stared at me. "You're not?" "No." I pressed both hands flat on the table. "I'm not angry, but I am grieving a second loss, Michael. The son I thought I knew." The words landed. I watched them land. Michael's face crumpled at the edges, not all at once, but in the slow, unstoppable way of something that has been holding its shape through sheer effort and has finally run out of strength. His chin trembled. He pressed his lips together hard against it, but his eyes filled anyway, and 2 tears broke loose and ran down his face, and he did not wipe them away. I didn't. He stopped, started again. "I told myself it was just practical, that you wouldn't miss it, that you didn't understand what it was worth, that I was just—" His voice broke completely on the next word. "I told myself so many things, Dad." "I know," I said. "Do you hate me?" The question came out raw and small, the voice of a boy rather than a man, and it hit me somewhere deep and undefended. I felt the impact of it in my chest, in my throat, behind my eyes. "No," I said. "I could never hate you. But I cannot pretend this didn't happen, and I cannot sign anything that gives you power over what your mother and I built together." I paused. "This house is not just property, Michael. It is 42 years of your mother's life. It is the yard where she planted that oak tree. It is every birthday and every Christmas and every ordinary Tuesday that made us a family." My voice finally broke just slightly on the last sentence. I let it break. "I will not sign it away." Michael bent forward over the table and pressed both hands over his face. A sound came out of him, muffled, wretched, the sound of a man confronting himself without the shelter of his own justifications. His shoulders shook once, twice. I stood up. I walked to his end of the table. I picked up the folder containing the power of attorney and placed it in his hands. "Take this home," I said quietly, "and think about what your mother would say if she could see tonight." Michael took the folder. He did not look up. I walked back to my chair and sat down. The candles guttered in a small draft from somewhere. Margaret's chair sat empty at the head of the table, and I looked at it for a long moment and felt her absence the way you feel a missing tooth with your tongue, constantly, involuntarily, with a specific and irreducible ache. A minute later, I heard the front door open and close. Lily came back into the dining room. She looked at Michael's empty chair, then at me. Her eyes were wet. "Are you okay?" she asked. "Yes," I said, and then because it was also true, no. She sat down beside me and put her arm around my shoulders, and I leaned into her the way I had not leaned into anyone since the night Margaret died, and we sat there together in the quiet house while the candles burned down. I thought it was over. For 3 weeks after the Sunday dinner, I knew Carol had warned me not to assume, but 3 weeks of silence has a weight of its own, and I had let myself lean into it. Let myself believe that what I had seen on Michael's face at that table had been enough to change something. He did not call. Emily did not call. The house was quiet in a way that felt cautiously like resolution. 22 days after the dinner, I was in the backyard pulling weeds along the fence line when my phone rang, Carol's name on the screen. I pulled off my garden glove and answered. "Thomas." Her voice was careful and precise, the way it got when she was about to say something that required steadiness on both ends of the line. "I received a filing this morning from an attorney named Derek Saunders. He represents Michael." I straightened up slowly. "What kind of filing?" "A probate contest," Carol said. "Filed yesterday with the Los Angeles Superior Court. Michael is formally challenging Margaret's amended will." I stood in the yard with the sun on my back and felt something cold move through me that had nothing to do with the temperature. "On what grounds?" I asked. "Undue influence," Carol said. His attorney is arguing that Margaret was in a diminished state due to her illness when she amended the will 5 months before her death, and that the changes do not reflect her true intentions. A pause. It is the argument I anticipated, Thomas, and it is the argument your wife anticipated as well. I looked at the oak tree at the far end of the yard. Explain it to me plainly, I said. What happens if they win? If the court finds that Margaret's amended will was the product of undue influence, that someone pressured or manipulated her into making those changes, the amended document would be set aside. The previous will would govern the estate instead. Carol's voice stayed level. The life estate protection disappears. The consent requirement for the back parcel disappears. And the clause that transfers Michael's share to Lily, if a legal dispute arises, that disappears too. So he gets everything back. He gets back the legal landscape that existed before Margaret made those changes, which is what he needs. Another pause. This is a significant gamble on his part, Thomas. If the court denies the contest, the clause activates automatically. Michael loses his share of the back parcel entirely. It transfers to Lily. I understood then what Emily had calculated. She had pushed Michael into this. I was certain of it, the same certainty I had felt looking at her photograph in Richard's phone, because she had decided that a long-shot chance at everything was worth the risk of losing Michael's share. She had run the numbers. She had made the bet. She had done it with Michael's name on the filing. Can they win? I asked. No, Carol said with a directness I felt in my chest. The attorney in Glendale documented every session with Margaret meticulously. 3 separate appointments over 6 weeks. Each time, Margaret stated her intentions clearly, specifically, and without ambiguity. She described exactly what she feared, exactly what she wanted to protect, and exactly why she was making each change. A brief pause. Your wife did not leave a single opening, Thomas. She closed every door. My throat tightened so hard, I had to wait a moment before I could speak. How long will this take? I asked. 6 months approximately. The court's calendar in Los Angeles is substantial. Carol's voice softened slightly. I know that's a long time to wait. It is, I said, but I want you to hear something. Carol paused, and when she continued, her voice carried the particular weight of someone saying a thing they mean entirely. Margaret planned for this moment. She planned for this exact filing on these exact grounds, with this exact outcome in mind. The clause in her will is not an accident. It is a door she left open not for Michael to walk through, but for him to close on himself. I called Lily after I hung up. She answered immediately. I told her what Carol had said, all of it plainly, the way Margaret would have wanted it told. When I finished, Lily was quiet for a moment. Then she said fiercely with a conviction that reminded me so completely of her mother that my eyes burned. Good, let them file. Mom knew they would. I looked at the oak tree. Yes, I said. She knew. He came on a Thursday evening just after 7. I was sitting in the living room with a book I had not been reading. The words kept sliding off the page, replaced by the same thoughts that had been circling for the past week. The probate filing, the 6 months ahead. The particular exhaustion of waiting for something you cannot hurry. When the knock came, I set the book down and went to the door. Michael stood on the porch under the yellow light of the exterior lamp. He was alone. No Emily, no briefcase, no manila folder. He was wearing a plain gray jacket over a dark shirt, the kind of clothes he wore on weekends when he was not performing anything for anyone. He looked tired in a way that went deeper than sleep, the kind of tired that comes from carrying something heavy for a long time without putting it down. We looked at each other through the screen door. I'm not here about the house, he said. His voice was rough at the edges, stripped of the smooth, professional ease I had heard at the dinner table. Or the filing, or any of it. I pushed the screen door open, but did not step back to invite him in. I stood in the doorway and waited. Michael looked at me for a long moment. His jaw worked slightly the way it had since he was a boy, when he was trying to find the right words for something difficult. He had always been better at the easy words, the practiced ones, the ones that sounded like what people wanted to hear. What came out was none of those. I miss her too, Dad. 5 words, unpolished, unstrategic. The truest thing he had said to me in months, possibly longer, and I felt the truth of it land in my chest, with a weight that had nothing to do with property or attorneys, or a filing at the Los Angeles Superior Court. Because he did. I knew he did. Whatever Michael had become in those months of planning and calculating and telling himself convenient stories about what his parents' house was worth underneath all of it, He was still the boy who had loved his mother. That boy had not disappeared. He had just been buried under something heavier than grief. I looked at my son. I thought about Margaret's empty chair at the head of the dinner table. I thought about the diary she had kept while she was sick and exhausted and running out of days. I thought about the letter that began with, "If you are reading this, I am no longer here to protect you." And I thought about the oak tree in the yard and the brass key and the safe deposit box and everything Margaret had done to make sure I would still be standing when it was over. She had done all of that because she loved me. I understood standing in this doorway that she had also loved Michael, that the pain of watching what he was becoming had been its own particular grief layered inside the larger one, that she had not built those legal protections out of hatred for her son. She had built them because she understood that sometimes loving someone means building a wall they cannot cross, so that what is left of them, the real part, the boy underneath, has somewhere to come back to. "I know you do," I said. My voice was steady. My heart was not. We stood there in the yellow porch light for a moment that lasted longer than its actual seconds. The night was cool around us. Somewhere down the street, a dog barked twice and went quiet. The oak tree was a dark shape at the far end of the yard, its leaves shifting slightly in a small wind I could not feel from where I stood. Then I reached out and let the screen door close gently between us. Not because I hated him, not because I was punishing him, but because I had learned in the past several weeks that loving someone does not mean opening every door they knock on. Sometimes it means standing in the doorway and telling the truth, and then stepping back inside to protect what you have been trusted to protect. I went back to my chair. I picked up the book. The words still would not stay on the page. But for the first time since Carol's phone call, the house did not feel like a place where I was simply waiting. It felt like a place I was keeping. A place Margaret had trusted me to keep. That was enough to sit with. 6 months is a long time to wait for something you cannot hurry. I had learned that during Margaret's illness, the particular discipline of living inside a timeline that belongs entirely to someone or something else, where your own urgency is irrelevant and patience is not a virtue so much as a requirement. The 6 months between Derek Saunders filing his contest and the court's scheduled hearing date had that same quality: slow, unavoidable, full of ordinary days that asked to be lived regardless of what was pending. I lived them. I went back to tending the garden. I had breakfast with Richard on Saturday mornings, sitting on the porch with coffee while the neighborhood came slowly awake around us. Lily came over for dinner most Sundays, and we cooked together the way we had that first Sunday, quietly, practically finding a rhythm that was its own kind of comfort. I read more than I had in years. I slept better than I expected. Carol kept me informed at each stage of the proceedings without burdening me with details I could not act on. The Glendale attorney had provided his documentation. The court had reviewed the filings from both sides. A date had been set. Then the date had passed. The call came on a Tuesday morning in April. I was in the kitchen making oatmeal when my phone rang, Carol's name on the screen. I turned off the burner and answered. "Thomas," she said. "The court ruled this morning." I set the phone against my ear and waited. "They denied the contest," Carol said. "Unanimously, the judge found no credible evidence of undue influence. Margaret's amended will stands in its entirety." I put my hand flat on the kitchen counter and leaned against it. The Glendale attorney's documentation was decisive. Carol continued. 3 sessions, 6 weeks. Margaret's stated intentions recorded in detail each time. The judge noted specifically that the amended will demonstrated, quote, "a clear and deliberate exercise of testamentary capacity by a person who understood precisely what she was doing and why." Carol paused. "Those were the judge's words, Thomas, not mine." My eyes were burning. I pressed the back of my hand against them and breathed carefully. "What happens now?" I asked. "The clause activates," Carol said. "Michael's share of the back parcel transfers to Lily, effective immediately as specified in the amended will. I'll handle the paperwork this week." Another pause. "I've also filed a report with the California Department of Adult Protective Services regarding Emily's conduct, the photographs, the listing preparations, the timing relative to Margaret's death. The investigation is theirs to pursue from here. I wanted you to know." "Thank you," I said. "There's one more thing." Carol's voice was careful. "Emily has already vacated the property she and Michael were renting in Brentwood. She filed for legal separation from Michael 3 weeks ago. I found out this morning." I stood in the kitchen and absorbed that. Emily had seen the outcome coming before the ruling arrived. She had not left immediately after the Sunday dinner, because there had still been a chance, however slim, that the probate contest could succeed. When that chance collapsed, she moved. She had protected herself again, as she always had, by moving first. The post-nuptial agreement had already separated her assets from Michael's liabilities. The legal separation removed her from the consequences of a probate contest that had failed. She had exited the situation the same way she had entered it, deliberately, efficiently, without sentiment. I did not feel satisfaction at that. I felt something quieter and more complicated, the recognition that some people move through the world, like that, always angled toward the exit before the fire starts, and that there is a particular kind of loneliness in living, that way that I did not wish on anyone, not even her. "I understand," I said to Carol. I called Lily the moment I hung up. She answered on the first ring. When I told her, she made a sound I had never heard from her before, not a sob, not a laugh, but something that was both at once a release of 6 months of held breath escaping all at once. I heard her press her hand over her mouth, heard the muffled sound of her crying freely for a moment, and then her voice came back rough and wet and absolutely certain. "Mom won," she said. 2 words. The truest summary of everything that had happened. "Yes," I said. My voice broke cleanly on the word, and I let it. "She did." I put the phone down on the counter and stood in the kitchen for a long time. The oatmeal had gone cold on the stove. The morning light came through the window above the sink the same way it always had. Outside, the oak tree stood in the yard where Margaret had planted it 30 years ago, its roots going deep and wide into the California soil, holding everything above it steady. She had put her trust in that ground. She had been right to. 3 days after the ruling, Richard came over. He did not call first. He never did in 28 years of being neighbors. Richard Hayes had operated on the assumption that a man who wanted company would answer his door, and a man who did not would not, and that this was a perfectly adequate system. He knocked twice at the front door at 9 in the morning, and when I opened it, he was holding 2 cups of coffee from the place on Lake Avenue, the one with the green awning that Margaret had always said made better coffee than anywhere else in Pasadena. "Thought you might want some company," he said. "I do," I said. "Come around back." We sat on the porch chairs facing the yard. The morning was clear and cool, the kind of April morning in Southern California that reminds you why people come here and stay. The light at that hour is specific and unhurried, and the air still carries the night's coolness before the day burns it off. The oak tree stood at the far end of the yard, its new spring leaves catching the light in small, bright points. Richard handed me a coffee and settled into his chair, and looked at the yard without speaking for a moment. That was the thing about Richard. He had never needed to fill a silence with words, which was part of why I had always trusted him. "Carol told me the ruling came through," he said finally. "Tuesday morning." He nodded, took a sip of his coffee. "Good." "Yes," I said. "Good." We sat with that for a moment. A mockingbird was working through its repertoire in the jacaranda tree along the fence line, cycling through 6 other birds' songs. In quick succession, the way mockingbirds do, restless and inventive, and completely unbothered by the fact that none of the songs originally belonged to it. "Richard," I said, "I want to ask you something I should have asked months ago." He looked at me. "When Margaret called you last spring, when she asked you to keep an eye on the house, what did she say exactly? Her exact words?" Richard was quiet for a moment, the way he was quiet when he was accessing something he had stored carefully, rather than simply recalled. "She called me over for coffee on a Wednesday afternoon in April," he said. "You were at a doctor's appointment. She made a pot of coffee, and we sat at her kitchen table, and she looked at me the way Margaret always looked at people when she meant what she was about to say." He paused. "She said, 'Richard, I need a favor. I need you to watch the house when Thomas isn't there. Not every day. Just when something seems wrong. And if you see anyone coming to the property who shouldn't be there, anything that doesn't feel right, I need you to hold on to it. Write it down. Take a picture if you can. But don't tell Thomas yet. He's going to need what you find more than he needs to know about it now." I pressed my lips together hard against what was rising in my throat. "She said one more thing," Richard said. His voice had dropped slightly. "She said Thomas is going to need people around him who are paying attention. I won't be able to do that, so I need you to." The mockingbird went quiet in the jacaranda. The yard was very still. I bent forward in my porch chair with both elbows on my knees and my hands pressed together in front of me, and I let what Richard had just said move through me completely, not fighting it, not managing it, just letting it go where it needed to go. My shoulders shook once. My jaw ached with the effort of staying quiet. She said that I managed. She asked you to protect me. She did. Richard's voice was steady and simple. He did not look away. And I want you to know, Thomas, it was not a hardship. It was the easiest favor anyone has ever asked me. I wiped my face with the back of my hand and straightened up and looked at the yard. The oak tree, the rose bushes along the fence, the back lot visible beyond the property line, its half-acre of California soil that had started all of this and would now pass in time to Lily and to whatever she chose to build on it. The patio. Margaret and I had poured ourselves one October Saturday 40 years ago, still solid, still level, still holding everything above it without complaint. She thought of everything, I said. She did, Richard said. I didn't give her enough credit. My voice came out rough and uneven, for how clearly she saw things. I always thought of myself as the practical one, the engineer, the one who understood how structures work. I shook my head slowly. She understood how everything works, not just structures, people, consequences, time. Richard considered that. Different kind of engineering, he said finally. I looked at him. 31 years in a classroom, he said. Building something that holds up after you're gone. That's engineering. I felt the truth of that settle into me, the way good things settle quietly without fanfare in a place that had been waiting for it without knowing. We finished our coffee. The morning warmed around us. A neighbor's sprinklers came on down the street, and the sound of water on dry grass carried through the still air. And somewhere a car started, and the day went on the way days do, regardless of what they contain. Thank you, I said to Richard when we stood to go inside. For what you did, for what she asked you to do. Richard picked up his empty cup and looked at me with the direct, uncomplicated regard of a man who had spent his life in situations that required honesty. Thank her, he said. It was her idea. I looked at the oak tree one more time. I do, I said, every day. There is a chair by the kitchen window that I have not moved in 31 years. It is a plain wooden chair with a cushion that Margaret recovered herself. Sometime in the early 90s, a blue and white fabric with a small floral pattern that she had found at a fabric store in Arcadia and brought home folded under her arm, pleased with herself in the quiet way she was pleased when she found exactly the right thing for a reasonable price. She reupholstered it herself on a Saturday afternoon, while I was in the garage, and by the time I came inside for dinner, it was done, and she was at the stove, and she said simply, I fixed the chair, and I said, it looks good, and that was the whole conversation. I have thought about that afternoon many times since she died, not because it was remarkable, because it wasn't, because it was exactly the kind of afternoon that makes up a life unremarkable, comfortable, full of small competencies and quiet satisfactions. And I had not understood while I was living it that those afternoons were the thing itself, not a backdrop to something more important, the thing itself. On a Sunday morning in late April, 3 weeks after the court's ruling, Lily came over for breakfast. She brought eggs and sourdough from the bakery on Colorado, and a small bunch of yellow tulips that she set in the glass vase on the kitchen counter, without being asked the way she had started doing, every time she came, finding small ways to put living things in the house, which I suspected was partly instinct and partly the particular wisdom of someone who spent her days in a hospital and understood that the difference between a room that feels inhabited and a room that does not is often something very simple. We made eggs together, scrambled the way I liked them, which was also the way Margaret had always made them, with a little cream and low heat and patience. Lily stood at the stove, and I stood beside her, and we talked about ordinary things, a difficult patient she had dealt with that week, a section of the back fence that needed replacing, whether I had thought any more about the trip to Oregon I had been planning when all of this began. Have you thought about going? She asked, turning the egg slowly in the pan. I have, I said. I think I might. Not to run away this time, just to go. Lily smiled without turning around. Dale would be glad to see you. He would, I agreed, and I'd be glad to see him. There's a difference between leaving and just going somewhere. Lily looked at me over her shoulder. Something in her expression shifted, a small private recognition, the look of someone hearing a thing they had hoped to hear. Yeah, she said. There is. After breakfast, we sat on the back porch with our coffee. The April morning was doing what April mornings do in Pasadena, warming slowly, generously, the light going from thin and pale to something richer as the hours moved. The roses along the fence were coming in the first real blooms of the season, and the oak tree at the end of the yard was full with new growth, its canopy dense and green and unhurried. I looked at that tree for a long time. I thought about the morning Lily had stood beneath it with a shovel, and her hands in the dirt, and her heart in her throat, racing against a brother she loved, and a timeline she did not fully understand, driven by a promise she had made to a dying woman who had trusted her with the most important errand of her life. I thought about Margaret sitting in her garden chair beside that tree in the last months in the late afternoon light, when I had assumed she was resting, and she had in fact been thinking carefully, methodically, with the full force of a mind that had never stopped working about how to protect the man she had spent 42 years building a life with. She had done it without asking for credit, without telling me what she was doing, without needing me to know while she was alive that she had saved me. That was who she was. That was who she had always been. "I want to show you something," I said to Lily. I went inside. I walked through the kitchen and stopped at the chair by the window. Margaret's chair, the one with the blue and white cushion she had reupholstered on that unremarkable Saturday in the early 90s. I picked it up. It was lighter than it looked. I carried it through the back door and out onto the porch and set it down beside my chair facing the yard. Lily watched me do this without speaking. When I sat back down beside it, she looked at the empty chair and then at me, and her eyes filled immediately, two bright points of water catching the morning light, and she pressed her lips together and breathed carefully through her nose. "Hi, Mom," she said softly to the empty chair. Something broke open in my chest at that, not painfully the way things had been breaking open for months, but cleanly the way a window opens to let the air in. I felt it move through me, and I let it go, and I did not try to name it or contain it. I reached over and took Lily's hand. We sat like that for a while, the three of us, in whatever way three can mean, two and an absence that is also a presence, and looked at the yard Margaret had planted and tended and loved, and the oak tree she had chosen as the place to leave the most important thing she had to give me, and the roses coming in along the fence she had always said needed more sun, and was right about as she was right about most things. She would have liked this morning, Lily said. She would have, I agreed. She liked April. She liked any morning that was clear. She did. We finished our coffee. The morning continued its unhurried warming. At some point, Richard appeared at the fence line, the way he sometimes did on Sunday mornings, and I raised my cup to him, and he raised his hand in return and walked on without stopping, because Richard understood when something was complete and did not require addition. I thought about what I had learned in the months since Margaret left me that box under the oak tree. I had learned that love is not always loud. Sometimes it is a diary kept in secret, a safe deposit box in a bank 4 blocks from home, a brass key on a white tag, a neighbor asked to watch and wait and hold on to what he found. I had learned that knowing someone, truly knowing them, is not the same as understanding what they are capable of. Margaret had been capable of far more than I had given her credit for, not because she had hidden it from me, but because I had not thought to look. I had learned that protecting yourself is not the same as losing faith in people. You can understand what someone has done and still love the parts of them that did not do it. You can close a door and leave a light on at the same time. And I had learned slowly and completely the way you learn the things that matter most, that the life you build with another person does not end when they leave. It continues in the walls of the house, in the fabric of a chair cushion, in the roots of a tree planted 30 years ago, from a sapling wrapped in newspaper. Margaret was gone, but what she had built was still standing. And so was I. I set my coffee cup down on the porch railing and looked at the yard one more time. The roses, the oak, the back parcel of California soil that would one day be Lily's to do something good with. And I felt for the first time since the morning Richard called and everything changed, that the house was not a place I was guarding. It was a place I was living in. There is a difference. Margaret would have wanted me to know that. I think finally I did. I am 66 years old, and this family story taught me something I should have learned sooner. I made it easy for them. I waved away the warnings. I told my wife she was reading too much into things, and she went and built me a fortress anyway, quietly without complaint, because that was who she was. Do not be like me. When someone who loves you tries to tell you something hard, stop talking and listen. I believe God places the right people around us at exactly the right moment. Margaret, Richard, Lily. None of what I survived would have been possible without them. That is not luck. That is grace. Family betrayal does not announce itself. It arrives wearing familiar faces and reasonable explanations. But here is my personal opinion. The people who love you quietly and consistently, without asking for anything in return, are the ones worth protecting. Protect them back. Do not take them for granted the way I did. This family betrayal did not destroy me. It showed me what was already holding me together. If this family story meant something to you, leave a comment, share it with someone who needs it, and subscribe to the channel so we can keep telling stories that matter. Thank you for staying until the very end. Some stories on this channel contain fictional elements built for reflection and understanding. If this content isn't right for you, feel free to step away and find something that serves you better.